Hello everybody, and welcome back to my channel. So we're going to be continuing our Dead Like Me discussion, and we are going to be talking about episode 6. This episode is called My Room. So in the previous episode, there was a lot happening. There was a lot of really big points that were made, and we had a major character from the show exit. So naturally, this episode is a little lower energy because we're kind of jump-starting the cast again, and we're kind of getting reconnected with them and kind of seeing the aftermath of what's going to happen to them now that a major cast member is gone. Betty is gone. She's been immediately replaced with a new character. We are introduced to Daisy Adair. She is from New York. We learn that she's been transferred, and it seems right off the bat that something is a little amiss. We find out that she died on the set of Gone with the Wind. We meet her. She's kind of a big old bee, and she immediately takes over George's space. So Rube offered for her to live somewhere. She offered George's place. That's where Daisy went. Daisy is one of my favorite characters in the entire show because she's so complex. I love all of them, and Daisy is just this really deep character, but she comes off as so vapid and shallow the entire beginning run, and the more we learn about her, the more interesting she becomes. So George is pretty upset about Betty being gone. Betty was one of her closest friends. Everybody else kind of seems like they're just moving on along as if they're not really bothered. We have seen that another Reaper has come and gone. It's very possible over the years that Mason has seen Reapers come and go. I mean, we already know that one Reaper left this group. When Roxy died in the 80s, Mason had already been dead and a part of this group for a while, so he had to have seen somebody else go. And because Rube's been the leader for so long, he's had his share of people coming and going. So they don't really seem too affected by Betty being gone, but George is taking it really hard. This is her first undead friend that she's lost, and she's really gone. We see that George is kind of starting to let go of her old life. She returns Frankenfruity that she bought from the first episode at Joy's yard sale. We find that she's really just grasping on to experiences and allowing them to happen to her. She kind of involuntarily joins the bowling team for Happy Time, and at the very end of the episode, we find that she loves it, and she's feeling this new sense of aliveness in her undead life, and she's really just soaring. This episode's kind of central theme is about acceptance and moving on, and we're seeing that with the last family. So we're seeing more of this struggle between Clancy and Joy, and we're seeing Joy and Reggie really just coming together in the midst of this tragedy. So Joy finally discovers Reggie's toilet tree and takes her to therapy, and from that they decide that they're gonna start unboxing some of George's things and celebrate her and remember her and really just allow her spirit to kind of come back into the house and celebrate that energy. So they start unboxing some of her stuff, and Reggie's delving into her sister's aura and trying to just really become her in the same way that George tried to become Betty. This episode was world building, and it was setting up for what we're about to see because Daisy is going to be a huge character in the coming episodes. The only disappointment with this episode is that we got no Jasmine Guy. She wasn't involved in this episode at all, and this is kind of the first episode where we're going to see her not being featured. In the coming episodes, there are a lot more where she doesn't show up, so this is one of them where she's not brought up even a little bit. She's just kind of not there very casually. This is the first episode where we get a glimpse at young George, which this will be a B cast character that we're going to see a lot of. We're going to see a lot of flashbacks over the rest of the series of Joy with this wonderful 90s perm and a very young Georgia lass, and she's just feisty and she's way too precocious for her age, and she just does not give any bothers at all, and it really unpacks more layers about who Georgia is. Young George is just as interesting as older George, and she does such a good job, this little actress, of portraying this kind of hard-ass character. So I am excited to get to talk about her more. We learned in this episode that Georgia was a great bowler and that she was very athletic, but no surprise, she didn't like teams, so she didn't pursue them very well. So in this episode, Georgia does really well in bowling, and much like anything else that Georgia puts her mind to, she can do it, and she can do it really well. So we find out that young George just completely threw a match and just couldn't have been bothered by it. And we see in her future self that she's embracing this experience, embracing this team element, and she thrives. And it's really cool to see that side, because throughout this episode we saw a lot of George kind of sinking into herself, because Daisy is such a big personality. Daisy thinks that she is the 1, the 2, and the 3, and that kind of throws George because she's got a lot of confidence, but now she's being faced with someone who has even more confidence, and we're seeing George kind of sink into herself. So it's nice to see her soar and really just thrive, because we're seeing two sides of her, and it's only gonna be a matter of time before Georgia connects those pieces together and she doesn't take the crap anymore. My favorite quote from this episode is again from underrated gay icon Dolores Herbig. There's a scene where she's talking about one of the other members in Happy Time and whether or not she wants them on the bowling team, and she says, because he's a PRICK, it's a quality of life issue. And what I love about Dolores is that she doesn't curse, she doesn't like to curse, and she finds cutesy little ways of being naughty and saying curse words. We'll continue to discuss this wonderful show. Thank you so much for watching this episode, and I'll see you guys next time.